cat must be the tastiest animal on earth. They can't even stop trying to eat themselves. Anyway, so sorting through my Mirage block stuff. Blah 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 blah. I had these put aside yesterday. Couple of probably Chinese Weatherlight cards. They're in really rough shape. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them or not. Need to be cleaned off. Apparently at some point in the past, probably when all my crap was getting packed up when I left for the military, because I wasn't able to get all of my stuff packed up at the time by myself. My older brother finished packing stuff up for me in my old apartment. No problems there, or at least I hoped. Whatever. And yeah, that one looks like cat made a mess on it. Vomit style. I'm not sure which is more disgusting, if she had done that or peed on it, but whatever. I don't know if I'm going to keep them. They were nasty when I found them. I put them aside. I don't know if I'm going to bother cleaning them off. I'm never going to be able to trade them for anything. It's like, excuse me, yes, would you like some Chinese Weatherlight cards? It's like, alright, what does it do? I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, what's this weird stain on it? It's cat puke. I think I'll pass. You know, I'm not gonna... One thing that shocked me is I had a freaking playset of Enlightened Tutors. A playset that I'm not using. I have to look into whether that's even restricted anywhere. So I have at least 2 play decks. Well, let me think. There's 2 play decks. I have at least 1 play deck that uses an Enlightened Tutor. I have an Enlightened Tutor in my EDH deck. Not sure if I have Enlightened Tutors in any of my other decks, but it's an awesome card. It's a white instant. You search your deck for an enchantment or artifact, shuffle, put that card on top. So anyways, some cards I came across while I was sorting I'm going to talk about. Put the AC in last night. It's hot. And humid. You know, some people say, well, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. You know, it's both. It's really both. This is coming from someone who spent time in Iraq. It's like, you know what, I know what it feels like to be standing outside in 130-degree weather with almost no humidity, mind you. The lack of humidity made it bearable. It's like the sweat just vapes right off of you instantaneously, I swear. Except for in your pants. You've got a swamp there. Yeah, that was nasty. So anyways, Mundungu. I used to play this guy. He's a 1/1 for a colorless and a colorless and a blue and a black. No white. Brain fart. And you tap him to counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 colorless and 1 life. People did not like me playing Mundungu. They just didn't like it at all. I'll tell you something right now. There are so many times I saw Mundungu just eat removal. Zebra Unicorn, he's a 2/1 with, for all intents and purposes, a built-in lifelink. He was actually reprinted with a different name and invasion block as Horned Cheetah. Grinning Totem. 4 colors, it's an artifact. 2 colors, tap and sack it. You search your opponent's deck for a card, put it off to the side. You can play it as though it were in your hand. At the beginning of that player's next turn, if you haven't played it, put it in their graveyard. It's an interesting little card. Dingus Staff. You know, I put this aside because it's a take on the Dingus Egg. The original Dingus Egg was a 4-colorless artifact. If a land if a land left play, Dingus Egg dealt 2 damage to that land's controller. Dingus Staff is whenever a creature goes to the graveyard from play, 2 damage to creature's controller. And I believe it's Magnetic Mine, I think it is, in Mirrodin Besiege, where it's 2 damage when an artifact goes to graveyard, and it's just like, we all know why they didn't call that thing something Dingus related, because let's be honest, most gaming geeks, regardless of how old we are, the absolute second that we see a card with the word dingus printed on it, we're gonna turn into freaking 13-year-old boys. It says dingus on it. Yep. Purgatory, it's one of those enemy color gold cards that we saw in Mirage. It's an enchantment. Creature goes to your graveyard from play, and you place it face up underneath Purgatory. During your upkeep, you can pay 4 colorless and 2 life to take a creature out of Purgatory and put it directly into play. I used to have a life gain deck built around Purgatory, and I've seen people counter Purgatory just because there's too much text on that card. Counter. You just sit there and say, really? That's your basis for countering it? Really? Alright, fine. King Cheetah. Maybe this is the first card with Flash. I don't know. I was talking about Flash yesterday. It's 3/2 for 3 colors and a green. Basically has Flash. Flavor text. If you find yourself a friend being chased by a king cheetah, you have but one chance. Trip your friend. Sukata wisdom. That's something I've seen expressed in real life with bears and stuff like that. But whatever. So here we have Kisku Drake. It's a 2/2 flyer for 3 colors and a green. You can pump green into it, you give +0/+1 till end of turn, but you can only do that once a turn. The word Kisku is an anagram for sucky. I think that was done on purpose. You can sacrifice the Kisku Drake and the Spitting Drake to search your library for a Viashivan Dragon and put it into play. Oh look, Spitting Drake. 3 colors and red for 2/2 flying. You can pump red to give it +1/+0 till end of turn. Only usable once a turn. Viashivan Dragon, 2 colors, red, red, green, green. For a 4/4 flyer with fire breathing and inflatable toughness on a 1/1 ratio with green mana. Yay. Riverbow. He was actually pretty big when he first came out. Blue, of course, being a very popular color. His control was big at the time. He's a 2/1 island walk with regeneration. That's nice. For only 2 mana. A Brass Talon Chimera. I don't think I saw any other Chimeras while sorting through here. All of the Chimera artifact creatures, or at least most of them, were like 2/2s for 4 mana. And you could sacrifice any one of them to put a +2/+2 counter on any of the others and give them some kind of an ability. For instance, the Brass Talon was a first striker, and you'd sacrifice him to put a +2/+2 counter on target Chimera, and that Chimera permanently gains first strike. I've seen people play Chimera decks. They were kind of ho-hum. If the opponent didn't have a lot in the way of removal, Chimera deck could be nasty because you'd get some really, really big creatures. They were really big. Uktabi Orangutans. It's 2/2 when it comes to play, just nuke an artifact. He was also at times nicknamed as Bum Monkeys for reasons that I'm not going to get into. It's a 1/3 Bander and Weatherlight, Banalish Infantry, 2 colors and a white. I believe Weatherlight, not 100% certain on this, but pretty highly certain, high confidence I'm speaking with. I believe Weatherlight was the last time outside of an unset you saw a creature with banding of any type. I mean, it wasn't a bad ability, it's just one that a lot of people never took the time to learn and understand. Celestial Dawn, colors double white, enchantment. basically all your cards are white, all your mana costs are white. Card was nicknamed Bleach. I wonder why. Mirage gave us Shadow Bane, Pulse and a white, instant. Prevent all damage to you or a creature you control from any one source. If the source was black, gain 1 life for each damage prevented this way. Not a bad card. A bit of a color hoser. What ended up being significantly more popular was its cousin in Visions, Honorable Passage. Same mana cost, instant. Prevent all damage to you or target creature from any one source. If that source is red, Honorable Passage deals to the source's controller an amount of damage equal to the amount of damage prevented. Yeah. Honorable Passage was nasty. I Lightning Bolt your creature. Honorable Passage, my creature lives, take 3. I've seen people ask weird questions on it. It's like, I remember someone asked, it's like, wait a minute, I just Honorable Passage, she's Honorable Passage. Does he still take damage? And I'm like, well, what's the exact text on Honorable Passage? And it's like, okay, so what's dealing the damage? Well, he cast Lightning Bolt on. Well, I cast Lightning Bolt on his creature, and he Honorable Passage it. I'm like, okay, so what's doing the damage? Honorable Passage. What color is Honorable Passage? Yeah, sometimes, you know, I don't know, sometimes people get too caught up in weird things. But oh well. Imperial Armor, colorless double white, enchant creature. These days it would be enchantment aura, and it would say enchant creature on the card, blah 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 blah. Enchanted creature gets +X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Now, some people ask weird questions on this. It's like, is it the number of cards in my hand when I cast it, or does it like update at the beginning of each turn? And you know, people ask these questions, and it's like, no, it changes dynamically. And that's also one of the relatively small number of creature enchantments that saw tournament play. In fact, it was a key component in I can't remember what year it was. And this is something I've mentioned several times over the years. One of the World Championship decks, that was one of the key components. It was a white weenie deck that ran 17 lands. I mean, in just about any other deck, that'd be a criminally low amount of mana. Oh, amount of mana sources. I don't do it very often, but yeah, it does happen popularly that people use the term land and mana interchangeably, and I don't do it very often, usually just when talking about mana sources in decks. And it's just like, yeah, you need more land, you can't generate enough mana, you have too much land, what are you going to do with all this, blah blah blah, etc. etc. But it's important to understand the distinction between the two. I don't think I put it aside, but there was a green card in here somewhere that said you may play 3 additional lands this turn or something crazy like that. And I saw someone play it thinking it was basically a green dark ritual. It's like, no, don't work that way. Look, first appearance of Pacifism is in Mirage. It's been reprinted so many times over the years, but it really is a decent card. I don't know if it's ever saw a tournament play, but wouldn't be surprised if it has. You know, it's a good little card. Ward of Light, white enchantment. It's an aura. Enchanted creature gains pro from the color of your choice. Protection granted by Ward of Light does not bury it. You may choose to play it as an instant. If you do, bury it end of turn. Well, bury, destroy it without possibility of regeneration. Anyways, there was a cycle of enchantments. I don't know if it was a full cycle, but at the very least you had it in white and green. I don't know about the others, where you had auras that you could play as instants, which was an interesting idea, but unfortunately it just never really caught on because I don't know, I just think it just never really caught on. They've fiddled with the idea off and on over the years. I want to say they tried it again in Masks block without having the enchantment die at the end of the turn. Another thing they've fiddled with, Illumination, white, interrupt to be classed as an instant. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. That spell's caster gains life equal to the spell's casting cost. They played around with putting counter spell abilities in other colors than blue. Before that, the only non-blue counter spells were in red, and they were pretty much either anti-blue, such as Elemental Blast or Pyroblast, or I believe was it called Relic Blast or Artifact Blast? I can't remember. It was a basically it was an artifact specific counter spell in, I want to say, Antiquities, maybe Legends, one of those two. I don't recall. I wasn't playing at the time, but I know the card exists. There was also a black spell. I want to say it was Withering Boon. That would, you'd pay 3 life to counter a creature spell. Miraculous Recovery. Never really saw a tournament play as far as I know. It's 4 cults and a white instant. Take creature from your graveyard, put it into play with a +1/+1 counter. What's nice about Miraculous Recovery is I used to use it on casual decks and such. My younger brother ended up hating this card. He nicknamed it Miraculous Bull. You know. Jeez. And here's the Worldly Tutor. You search your library for a card and reveal. We'll search your library for a creature, reveal, shuffle, place it on top. Much like the Enlightened Tutor. There was a white tutor, a green tutor. I don't recall if there was a red tutor. There probably was, but I can't remember what the hey it did. The blue tutor was Mystical Tutor. And of course there was a black tutor. That was the Vampiric Tutor, where it was just pay life, and you'd pay a couple of life and just search for any old card. Yeah. Mystical Tutor, I want to say search for an instant or interrupt. I guess the red tutor would be search for a sorcery. I'm guessing on this one, I really am. Because, hey, you know what? The only ones that really count for tutors were the black and the white ones. To a lesser degree, the green. I mean, usually the biggest use for the Mystical Tutor was the tutor for a tutor. More Minotaurs. We got the Tolerum Piper that all flying creatures able to block him must do so. He's a 3/3 for 4 and a red. We got the Tolerum Minotaur. He's a 3/3 for 2 and double red. And he's got haste. And we got the Tolerum Champion. He's a 3/3 for 4 and a red. He's a first striker, and any creature signed to block him or is blocked by him loses first strike till end of turn. Yeah, they still tried to keep Minotaurs going in Mirage block. We had Tolerum as a we had Tarngoth as the Minotaur member of the Weatherlight crew, but there were no Minotaurs in the Tempest block, which took place on the Demi-Plane of Wrath, R-A-T-H. There were none in Mercadian Masks. Planar Chaos. Invasion had Tarngoth's legendary card, and I want to say one other Minotaur card. Urza's block didn't have any Minotaurs that I can recall. Onslaught and Odyssey, I don't recall any Minotaurs. There's precious few Minotaurs printed these days, which is a shame because they're a fun tribe. Vaishino Sandstalker. That's the guy I was trying to mention yesterday. He's a colorless and double red for a 4/2 haste. At the end of turn, he bounces himself back to your hand if he's still in play. It's fun stuff. Fire Blast, I think I've mentioned this before, is a card that I really underestimated the first time I saw it. 4 colorless and double red for an instant that deals 4 damage to target creature or player. First time I saw it, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of mana for 4 damage. It's not very flexible, and the alternative casting cost screws me over a long game because the alternative casting cost is sacrificing 2 mountains. What I didn't realize at the time was that the alternative casting cost was the only reason to play it, because you just sack mountains and use it as a finisher. Did not realize that. Until I learned it the hard way. Jarrell Centaur, 2/2 flanking with what would now be called Shroud. Probably the only green creature with flanking as well. He was a nasty piece of work back in the day. People had trouble dealing with him because he was basically immune to most removal cards because he had Shroud. And being a 2/2 flanker meant he could tangle with 3/3 creatures and take them down. Not himself, but he'd take them down. Elven Cache, 2 colorless double green for sorcery to return a card from your graveyard to your hand. Elven Cache was an attempt to print a fixed version of Regrowth. It does the exact same thing for exactly twice the casting cost. The original original Regrowth was a colorless and a green. Once again, poking at someone who had something to say really early in the sorting videos on the Wizard. Someone on the Wizard's message board said there weren't any Korean Magic cards, and in response to that, I actually busted out my some Korean cards early and showed them off. And I'm like, oh, those are looking mighty Korean to me. You know, hey, look, still looks Korean. You can't really make out the text very well on the camera, which is unfortunate. Maybe one of these days, I'll take a picture and like put just a straight up picture instead of video. But this is a Korean Doomsday, kind of funky. I'll tell you what a Korean Doomsday is. Korean Doomsday is when Kim Jong-il like finally goes off the deep end and decides to invade South Korea. That's a Korean Doomsday. Oh, let me tell you something. If you've watched Team America: World Police, the version I'm firmly of the mindset that the depiction of Kim Jong-il in that movie is not crazy enough. Heart of Bogarden. It's my understanding that the original playtest version of Heart of Bogarden was black. Not too much of a surprise. I used to play this card a lot. Used it with Skull of Orm to get it back. It's one of the few cards that made good use of cumulative upkeep. 2 colorless and double red. Cumulative upkeep of 2 colorless. When it goes, if you don't pay the cumulative upkeep cost, you sacrifice it, and it deals damage equal to its last paid cumulative upkeep to target player and each creature that player controls. So yeah, that could do some nasty stuff. You just play that, and it's like, bam, impending board wipe. Oh yeah, that's fun stuff. Thinking of it now, you know, you could probably get away with using that with some proliferate cards. Chaos Sphere. I put this aside just because it's a weird card. It's a 2 colorless and a red. Enchant World. There can only be 1 Enchant World card on the board at a time, I believe is the rule. Don't quote me on this. Enchant Worlds were a funny thing. Basically, it reverses the blocking rules for flyers and non-flyers. That is to say, flyers can only block flyers, and non-flyers can block flyers and other non-flyers. It was wacky. It was weird. Speaking of wacky, weird things, the retrace mechanic from the latter half of the Lorwyn Shadowmoor super block. I mentioned that when you played the spell with retrace, that you from your graveyard you'd remove it from the game. That was incorrect. Someone pointed that out to me. So I just figured I'd bring it up. A little correction there. Jeez. Big mess of cards. That, and of course, you know, sorting through it, I found a bunch of cards that didn't really belong here. Some Ice Age cards got stuck in with some white Ice Age cards got stuck in with some of the white cards from Mirage block. I'm not 100% certain how that happened. My guess is that I was just sorting too fast and cards stuck a little bit. I'm actually pleasantly surprised to find some of them though, because it's like, ooh, look, it's another Ice Age Swords to Plowshares. Nice. Oh well. I'm gonna call this video done and throw it up. Not that kind of throw up. Anyways, throw it up on YouTube and call it a night. Well, I'm not calling it a night, but whatever. Have a good night, fellas. Be good, be safe, etc., etc.